Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. We will discuss a little bit about the end of the method. This is my summary and reflection of Chapter 5 of the subject Methodological Approaches. Remember that I told you that I was an English teacher. I am currently studying the master's degree at EXPRO University. Within this video, as I told you, we will deepen upon the conclusions that certain experts in the field thought about ELT methods developed through time. Okay, a little bit of background just to remember. In the past, the most important language to be taught was Latin. Therefore, the methodologies were based on grammar and of the system of this language. Vocabulary and grammar were strictly taught, and the learners were this passive part of the learning process in which they were expected to learn by heart everything. However, through time, this perception has changed since the learner now has become the center of our teaching learning process. This traditional conception highly changed after the 1970s, in which more humanistic approaches were developed. Think about something. The approaches and methods were developed through time. According to Rogers and Richards, this idea of having a method in a different time means that there was another that was improved regarding the context or the learners. So, one method was better than the previous one. However, teachers around the world have debated this idea. Why? Because some of us think that these methodologies are strict, are something imposed to followed by heart by a teacher, and that these methods do not acknowledge the individual differences between learners or the social, cultural, and political backgrounds of each country, even the learners' ages. So, what will happen here? Peter Jarvis in 2006 thought that the search of a perfect method does not exist because there isn't a perfect method. It is a myth that a perfect method exists. Why? Why the method disappeared? Why has it disappeared? Well, remember that the original idea of the linguistic code was that there was an emissor, a message to be emitted, and a receiver, a receptor. That was the original idea. However, nowadays it is acknowledged that there are many other components and implications on this emitting message and recepting part. Why? Because there's a background, there's a social background that has to do with the subject, with the receiver, and the type of message that it's transmitted. For instance, I am not using the same vocabulary to record this video than the vocabulary and grammar used in a friendly chit-chat. This is the main reason something was a little bit wrong with the original idea of a method. So, under these circumstances, there isn't any method that could be adapted to any context. Okay? From the 90s on, I have already mentioned that from the 70s on, there were more humanistic approaches that made the student the center of this process. However, from the 90s on, the linguists, the experts on the field stopped using the term method or the term approach and gave more importance to the techniques used by the teachers and their teaching styles, which were very, very important. And it is not because we became the center of the class again. It is because the teacher needed the skills and the knowledge sufficiently enough to suit his or her learner's needs. So, the method became more of a guidance for the teacher, so he or she adapted his or her materials accurately rather than an imposed strategy to follow by heart. However, there are some factors that affect any language program. Which are these factors? The social context that has to do with the perception, the interests, the motivation of our students, and perhaps the prior experiences. The learners' differences, like the age group, their learning styles, their even their context. Okay, there are learners differences even cognitively. The learning conditions. For instance, there are schools in which all the subjects are taught through English, whereas in others, English is just taught as a special class. So, in that case, you cannot use the same methodology for both schools. And also the learning process per se, which is the strategies and mechanisms used by the teacher. Okay, so according to Holiday, there are three main components in any language project. When a school will adopt a methodology, they should think in three different methodologies. The methodology of the project per se, which are all the strategies that we will use in order to teach. The methodology of the curriculum. How will this educational program will presented or implemented in our schools? And finally, a deep research on the methodology that better suits that institution in order to suit our learners or our students, which in my case are primary students. What is my personal conclusion? Well, as I told you before, I've been a teacher for a long, long time. I am teaching in the school that I am currently teaching. We have a constructivist approach in which English is the main vessel of communication. I think that there isn't any perfect method. I agree with that idea. I think that the context of our students is very important, is essential because of the authenticity of the materials that we need to adapt for them. It does not matter what method or program we are given in our schools. What matters the most are the techniques and strategies that we and how skillful we become as teachers in order to present this content to our students, the learners, considering their individual needs and perspectives. Thank you for your attention. I hope that I gave a short summary of this topic. Thank you very much. These are some of the most important references that I used in order to make this summary. And well, also I used the slides from Slides Mania. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon. Bye.